Hi, this is Jamie Peden, and this is my Think Aloud assignment for TNL 530. For this project, I decided to use Stone Fox because I actually have this book in my classroom library, and I teach fourth graders, so I thought it would be good to use a book that is something they might read. So when I looked at the cover, I remember looking at this book in my library and trying to decide which genre bin it would fit in. So I read the back of the book before, and I remembered that it was about a boy trying to help his grandfather. From looking at the illustrations, I made an inference that this is some sort of dog sled race. I also infer that the man in the background is some sort of enemy, just from the way he's small back in the shadows and has a very serious look on his face. And I also made an inference that the young boy is very nervous because of the look on his face. He looks like he's getting passed by this other man. Looking at the title page, I noticed that the boy in this illustration looks a lot younger than the one on the cover, so I made an inference that this was a picture of him earlier in his life, and so I predicted that the story will start out with some sort of flashback of him when he's young, and maybe talk about him living on this farm. I also made an inference that that this is his dog, and maybe that's what helped him get interested in dog sledding. And I predict that he might have to move away somewhere, because I saw on the cover it was very snowy and there was mountains. It looks like a very different place, so I predict that for some reason he will have to move. When I read this first page, I made more inferences about his age. I thought he must really be young at the beginning here, since they were calling him Little Willie, and because he didn't understand when his grandfather wasn't responding, he thought that he was maybe just playing with him, so I thought that meant he must be really young. I also was searching for and using different information. I looked back at the illustration when I read that they were on a potato farm. I also wondered why Willie lives with his grandfather and questioned where his parents were. On page 4, I noticed that the author said for the second time how they would laugh together. So I made an inference that Willie and his grandfather used to be really happy and have a lot of fun together. I also made predictions. I predict that the grandfather is going to be very sick because he wasn't able to talk to Willie at all or explain anything to him. And at the end, when it said Willie ran out of the house, I made a prediction that he's going to try to find someone who could possibly help his grandfather. On page 5, the author describes Willie's dog Searchlight. And when I read this, I was remembering information. I remembered that there was a dog on the front cover, and so I turned back to the cover and saw that that dog did fit this description, that it was a big black dog and had a white spot on her forehead, about the size of a silver dollar. So I made an inference that this dog that he's going to race is his dog Searchlight. I also confirmed my prediction that Willie would try to go find help when he was talking to Doc Smith. So when I read about Doc Smith, I was synthesizing new information because I was visualizing Doc Smith as a male for some reason. And when I got to the part that said he was wearing I found out she was wearing a dress. I kept reading and saw that it said her. So then I went back and reread this part so I could visualize Doc Smith as a woman. On page 6, I was searching for and using different kinds of information when I looked at the illustration. I looked at the woman, Doc Smith, and this really helped me visualize her, and I realized that she was much older than I was imagining. I also made an inference that Doc Smith knows Willie and his grandfather very well. That's because she said this is probably just another one of his tricks, so that showed me that she must know them pretty well to know that the grandpa likes to play tricks on Willie. On page 7, I was synthesizing new information when I read that Doc Smith would be taking her horse so she could go visit grandfather. This made me realize that this was taking place a long time ago. So then I was wondering what year actually was this and where was this taking place. I also made prediction when I read that Searchlight enjoyed a good run. I predict that this will give Willie some sort of idea to use Searchlight for dog sledding because he does enjoy running. I also made an inference when they said that grandfather had tears in his beard. I made an inference that he was crying because he was really sad about something and he felt sick. On page 9, I made the inference that Doc Smith is a very serious person because she said to Willie, "Must you ask so many questions?" She told him to hush, so it told me that she takes her work seriously. I also made a prediction. I predict that Doc Smith will tell Willie that she thinks the grandfather is dying. I made that prediction because she seemed so hesitant to tell him what was going on, and because she asked if they owe anyone any money. I also made a connection on this page. Looking at the illustration, I noticed right away how the dog is right up close to the grandpa, like the dog is checking on him. And this reminds me of my dog because whenever someone's sick, she's always right there next to them, checking on them and cuddling with them, trying to protect them and make them feel better. So that looked to me what the dog was doing in this picture. On page 10, I was really surprised when the doc said that there's nothing wrong with him, that medically he's completely healthy. So this is where I really started thinking critically. I thought that he might have some sort of mental illness, and I was thinking about how today that's such a common thing for people to have mental illness, and that doctors are getting a lot better at diagnosing those things and treating them. And so I wondered if this was written today, if it would still be described, or if the doctor would explain it in a different way to Willie than the doctor did on this page. I was also searching for and using different kinds of information because I was wondering, why would the grandfather want to give up on life? Because he was described in the beginning of the chapter as laughing all the time, playing jokes on Willie, and I thought they had seemed so happy. So I was just questioning if the doctor really knew what was going on, or if maybe the doctor got this wrong. I wanted some sort of clue as to why the grandfather would be doing this. And last, on page 11, when I read that Willie said, I'll find out what's wrong and make it better. You'll see, I'll make grandfather want to live again. I was making the prediction that he will find some way to fix this. He'll find something to help his grandfather and make him better again. At least I hoped he would. It also really made me want to read the rest of the book because now I feel like I need to know what happened. So thank you very much for listening to my Think Aloud.